Okay, so this is everything that you're going to need and require to wash your motorcycle properly. Some sort of wax, either a turtle wax or other named brand, but something that's got a wash and wax kind of formula inside of it. Not home detergent. Home detergent will remove any sort of wax to protect your paint, and then it will make it so that the paint can start to fade a lot sooner than what you want it to be. Some sort of chamois. Good thing is to always have it lifted up, like I've got it on the bucket lid. Never have it on the floor, and always put it somewhere where there's not going to be a lot of dirt and debris. So I'm going to move this once I start washing the bike. You want a nice big bucket. You only have to fill them up to about halfway. You want to get them with some nice warm water and have a variety of sponges in there. Some ones just dedicated for the wheels and rims, and some that are just dedicated for the body and paint work, because you don't want to be going from dirty rims to a nice clean paint work, because you'll be scratching. I like to use a foam cannon, which applies a lot of suds onto the vehicle and removes a lot of the harsh dirt before you start scrubbing. That way there's a lot less dirt that you're actually scrubbing back into the paint. A good thing is either a hose or a gurney or a pressure washer for that instance. I use this little gurney. It does the job for what I need. Today we're going to be washing this motorcycle. It has gone through the rain and it's been riding for a couple of days now in the wet weather, so it's coming to its period of where it needs to get its annual tyre pressure checks and clean, so we'll be doing that today. When washing cars and bikes, you want to remember to wash from the highest point of the vehicles. So on a car, you'd start washing from the roof. On a motorcycle, you'd probably start washing from the top of the tank or the handlebars. Now you do this because when you're washing a motorcycle or car, dirt travels down with the water, so you want to make sure that you're not rubbing dirt back into the paint. So you start from the highest point and then you start washing down. When also doing this, you want to make sure that you get your sponge, and every time you do a panel, so you do like a section of the rear guard, and then you notice it doesn't have enough soap on it, you go into your bucket and you wash it out to try and get all of the dirt off it, and then you just keep continuing. This helps keep a lot of the dirt off the paint when you're washing. Okay, so now that we've finished, we've still got our chamois. It is quite damp. I always recommend giving it a wring out, so that's squeezing it as hard as you can to get all the moisture out before you put it away. We've used about half a bottle of our foam cannon. Now that's very normal because we only use about 100 mils of soap, and then you fill the rest up with water. So again, use one that has a wash and wax feature in it. Do not use home dishwashing detergent because it will strip all the wax off the vehicle or the motorcycle for that instance. And we have our gurney as well, and you can see that there's the different variations of sponges and scrubs in there. There's also a little plastic bag in there as well, because some vehicles and motorcycles, as this one has, now that it's nice and clean everywhere, it's got a large quiet air filter. Now a lot of air can pass through there and that goes straight to the engine. That's really nice, but a lot of water can pass through there and go to the engine and also cause it to have damage. So it's always a good idea, so if you've got something like that, put a plastic bag over it and then maybe get it with just a little bit of water and soap, not a lot. Just try and keep the minimal amount that goes into there, and always give your bike or car a good half an hour or so before you start driving again. And do remember that your brakes will be wet, so you have to take it easy. Okay, now that we've got the motorcycle all clean, another thing that you got to do annually, you don't have to clean your bike annually, it's just clean it whenever you want. I prefer to clean mine every time it gets dirty, that way it's a nice clean motorcycle and it prevents scratches from happening with all the dirt and debris on it. Another thing you got to do, you want to check your tyre pressures every 2 to 3 weeks, especially on a motorcycle. Now, you want a pressure gauge to inflate the tyre or deflate, and you want a good brand or a mechanical version of a tyre pressure gauge. Now a lot of the times where people say mechanical is because of the electronic gauges you could put onto a tyre, and if they're a cheap version, you can put them onto a tyre, it will test it, it might say 32 psi, then you go back to it and it might say 34 psi, so you're not getting an accurate reading. and accuracy is key, especially on a motorcycle. Now we're going to be adjusting this motorcycle over here and checking its pressures, and you really don't want your pressures to be out more than 2 to 3 psi, especially on a motorcycle. And we're going to be adjusting this to a single pillion rider, so a single person riding, because when it goes from single person riding a motorcycle to 2 people riding a motorcycle, the tyre pressures do change, especially on the rear tyre, because that's where a lot of the load is. So if we grab our tyre pressure gauge right here, we come over to the motorcycle, we come to the rear wheel. Okay, so this is called the valve cap. So you want to remove your cap, and then you want to get your tyre pressure gauge and place it onto the motorcycle. Now, I don't know whether you can see that or not. Oh, yep, just. You can see that it's at 32 psi. Okay, now you want to come onto the side of the motorcycle where it says tyre information. You want to have a look at that, and it will say for the front. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it goes cold tyre normal pressure. So when it means by cold, here we go, 29 psi front tyre for a single pillion, and 33 rear psi for a single pillion. Okay, so when it says tyre pressure at cold, that means when you go and get your motorcycle, you want to check it once you've left it overnight. You don't want to go for a long ride, 10-15 minutes, and then check your tyre pressures, because your tyres will therefore be warm. So you will not get an accurate reading, because the heat will expand and tyre pressures will change after a ride. So our rear tyre is on 32 psi, so we're 1 psi out. That's nice and good. So if we come over and we come and check the front of the motorcycle and check its front psi. Now it's supposed to be on 29 according to the tyre index. Now if we come here and we check the front tyre pressure, the camera we're at 28 psi, so we're only 1 psi out, so that's all in good. So you want to get your tyre inflation. I'm using an air compressor because I find that's easier for myself, and I've got one at home. If you don't, use a tyre pump. If you live extremely close to a service station and you don't have anything to pump up your tyres, I would recommend doing a real short ride and going and pumping up your tyres, but checking your pressures when it's at cold though. So you want to get onto the valve there. Now what I do is, because you can hear it hissing, see how it's hissing like that? Because you don't have it on correctly. You need to push it nice and firmly and twist it a little bit so it locks in. If it doesn't, just simply hold onto it and then press the actual gauge. Okay, so what I like to do, especially on some of these air compressed ones, they're out by a little bit. So I like to overinflate the tyre by a couple psi, maybe 2 to 3, and then decrease it using the pressure gauge. Okay, so once you've inflated your tyre above 2 to 3 psi, get your tyre pressure gauge for final check measurements and have a look at the pressure. Now, we're supposed to be on 33 psi. We're currently out a little bit. So just angle and let a little bit of the air out. Just keep going until you get to desired pressure. Now we're just a little bit out, so we're pretty close to 33 psi. I'd say about there's right. So then you just continue this process and do it with the front wheel. Okay, so now that we're at the front wheel, we've already inflated it up and increased the pressure by 2 to 3 psi. So for final measurements, it's always good to use your mechanical pressure gauge or a very high quality electric one. So if we look here, we're supposed to be on 29 psi, we're currently at 33. That's all in good, so you just angle it so it lets pressure out. Now we're on 30. So when you get closer to about 1 psi out, you don't want to let a lot of air out, because then you're just repeating the same process. You just want to do a quick jab like that, just to get to the pressure. And now we're on 29 psi. So then you just simply grab your valve cap, pop it back on the valve, twist it the opposite direction to screwing in until you feel it drop itself in, and then twist it on. That way you don't cross thread the plastic, because it is very soft. Once you've done all this, your bike is washed and tire pressures are all checked, so it's good for riding for another 2 to 3 weeks.